17-year-old girl convinces her reluctant father to let her to travel to Paris with her best friend to follow their favorite band around Europe this summer. When they get off the plane, they meet an attractive young man that offers to drive them back to their hotel. When she's on the phone with her father later, she looks across the room and realizes that her friend's being kidnapped. He tells her to hide under the bed, but suddenly she's snatched up by her feet. One of the kidnappers picks up her phone, and her dad utters these famous words: "I will find you, and I will kill you." Does this sound familiar to anyone? This was from the movie Taken. This movie, although obviously cinematic, has like ladies in it, shed light on an issue not widely discussed before its release: human trafficking. Today, there's still not a lot known about human trafficking, despite it affecting so many people. Today, I want to not only define what human trafficking can mean, but its prevalence worldwide to right here in the US, and some tips you can use to prevent yourself from becoming a victim. The Polaris Project defines human trafficking as the illegal practice of procuring or trading in human beings for the purpose of prostitution, forced labor, or other forms of exploitation. Now, when we think of human trafficking, the main type we think of is sex trafficking. But there are actually other types, like labor trafficking and organ harvesting. Sex traffickers use violence, threats, lies, debt bondage, and drug alliance to hook their victims in. For example, they might offer a person in a third world country a better life here in America, or a romantic relationship, but it's all false. Labor traffickers use the same tactics as sex traffickers do. And the victims of labor trafficking might be servants in a home, a factory, or a farm. And they would work in very inhumane conditions and get paid little to nothing. Organ harvesting happens because there are desperate patients willing to do anything to get an organ, and surgeons willing to break the law to obtain these organs. Surgeons might get these organs from an organ broker that have connections in the black market of organs. Sometimes the victims are killed, their organs taken, and left for dead. But actually, more common, people are tricked and given false promises to actually voluntarily giving an organ. The World Health Organization estimates that nearly 7,000 kidneys are obtained illegally every year. Human trafficking is not only an issue worldwide, but actually right here in the US. The Ohio State Bar Association estimates that there are nearly 27 million victims worldwide, and that human trafficking is a $32 billion enterprise yearly. It can take place anywhere in the US. It can take place in your neighborhood or somewhere in the city like a parlor. And the victims can be as young as 12 years old. The scope of the problem was first realized in this area in 2005 when the FBI recovered 151 victims in Toledo of sex trafficking. Now, there are several just general trips you can go by all the time just to protect yourself anywhere. And that is, don't travel alone, especially at night. And like the attractive young man in Taken, human traffickers might be attractive, well-dressed, you never know. So be wary of talking to strangers and giving them personal information about where you're staying and what you're doing. There's also a hotline you can call, the National Human Trafficking Center hotline at 1-888-373-7888 if you see a suspicious person or maybe a victim. When you're traveling internationally, it's important, if you're volunteering, to only volunteer at reputable agencies that have strict protocol and surveillance. It's also important to keep your passport in a very safe place, and before you go, to know the number of the closest U.S. embassy to where you're staying. Today, I not only hope that I educated you on something you might have not known much about, but also given you some tools to equip yourself to prevent yourself from